9 o'clock on your Thursday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you back in the studio today after our fun trip to Firehouse yesterday. Did you enjoy any more of the Gator Hammock hot sauce yesterday?
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. I was hoping you'd bring it up because, man, I'm about to put so many more people on than I already have. I posted it. It was so good. So context yesterday.
Yeah.
Tyler, we were at Firehouse. I was about to grab a sub, and Tyler recommends, hey, man, you got to try this Gator sauce. And I'm like, what was Gator sauce?
Because now they have the hot sauce bar where they had a bunch of different sauces.
So they have a bunch of hot sauces that you can go try. And I tried this Gator sauce. Let me tell y'all, it is easily a 10 out of 10. It was one of the best hot sauces I've ever had. So very good. Nice. It's a little hot, but it's not like overpowering to where it's going to ruin the sandwich at all. So
that's my go-to for hot sauce because you can still taste the sandwich.
Yeah.
I don't want something that's going to singe my taste buds where okay, this sandwich doesn't taste like anything. It's the perfect balance.
No. So it was very good. It got to a point where about 10 minutes after trying it, I went ahead and just bought a bottle because they sell the bottles at Firehouse. So I went ahead and had it last night. I even posted it on the Insiders Forum.
Really?
I said, okay, allow me to put y'all on to this hot sauce I discovered. And people were like, oh, my God, I love that hot sauce. It is the go-to one at Firehouse. I had 10 people telling me that yesterday. A few even went ahead and bought it on Amazon just because of it.
I feel like I should get some, percentage of the sales from this.
Dude, I'm thinking honestly, if we ever need another ad read or something, let's partner up with Gator Sauce. This thing was so freaking good. I had it last night. I made grilled chicken and some shrimp.
Yeah.
And just put it off to the side with it. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Again, it brought a little bit of that heat, but also it brought more flavor to the whole thing. So
I knew you would like it. I didn't know you'd like it this much,
dude. It was genuinely really, really good. Again, I'm picky with my 10 out of 10s, but
sure.
This one is for sure right up there.
Well, again, if you've never been to Firehouse and tried the Gator Hammock hot sauce, highly recommend it. Particularly on the brisket ad bacon, it's out of this world, as Jack can now attest to.
Yes, phenomenal.
Well, that was a good way to spend our Wednesday, but it's officially Thursday, and we are finally at the precipice of week 1 of college football. We got a lot to dive into, including what Shane Beamer said yesterday when talking to the media right after our Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up.
Time to get hyped. Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm, sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
See, I didn't forget to do it this time. It is the 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. You've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803 all nines. Are you aware that today starts 5 straight days of college football?
17 games today, man. 17 games today. We are 3 days away. We are Mazio Bennett days away.
We are.
From kickoff in the ATL.
For me, once you actually get to the games happening, we're here, right? It's, we're still 74 hours away, I guess, from South Carolina starting their season. But once you actually get into games, the content of college football carries you into Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Got games tonight, got games tomorrow. We're going to all cry on Saturday morning at 11:59 when Lee Corso puts on his headgear for the final time, and then we're off to the races for a loaded Saturday full of a ton of ranked matchups, and then boom, we're going to be right there Sunday at 3 o'clock in Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Man, it's going to be fun. It really is starting to pick up now. We got top 25 team playing tonight. We got a really good game with Nebraska and Cincinnati. By the way, did you see how bad the end zones and the way the field looks at Arrowhead?
So I saw an updated picture this morning. Apparently they have made it look better. You can still see the Chiefs outline behind it, but they at least filled in the Nebraska better than it was. Yeah, maybe they just weren't done painting it yesterday. I don't know, but
hopefully that was the case.
I saw the picture you were talking about, but from what I saw today, because they did a panoramic of the field, it does look better.
Okay, that is good to know because I had not checked that out yet. So I'm sure it's on Twitter or whatever. But man, tonight's the night.
Tonight's the night.
Week 1 is here.
I love the 5:30 kick too with Boise and USF. Like they didn't have to do that, but I appreciate that.
Yeah, like it's so strange. I like invited my buddy over who has a connection to Boise and all that, and I'm like looking at the time, like what time is he going to come over and stuff. Oh wait, the game's at 5:30, so I already have a busy day ahead, so I gotta really manage my time well to get ready for 5:30.
Also, because that game will be at 5:30, and then Nebraska and Cincinnati kick off at 9. Same network, ESPN. I'm really glad we've stopped pretending that college football games only last 3 hours now, because that's something that used to drive me crazy. They would put things in a 3-hour window. And then you have to say, okay, well, this game's going to start on ESPN News because game number 1 is still, 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. We're spacing things out correctly, which I appreciate.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to see it. And any other games you're looking forward to watching tonight?
Oh, man, I'm going to take a look at Missouri and Central Arkansas just because, it's an opponent. And they're going to play Bo Pribula and Sam Horn. And we'll get into this a little bit more specifically later on in the show, but I just kind of want to see, what they got quarterback-wise. We've seen a little bit of Pribula. Sam Horn played a little bit last year when, Drew Pine played last year when Brady Cook was hurt. But I'm interested to see how they kind of handled that because, it might be a classic if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one type of thing. And again, I'll see if Missouri looks like any kind of viable threat once again this year.
Yeah, we'll see if that's the case, but I don't know, man. I'm not super high on Missouri. Just because they lost so much, but they're still figuring things out. But again, some good games here coming up for them. I mean, they got this week, they got Kansas next week. I mean, they're going to be tested, I think, a little bit before they get to the South Carolina game.
And, I'm one of those people, I will scoreboard watch games. And, yeah, you have, like East Carolina, NC State, stuff like that. If that game's interesting in the fourth quarter, I'll turn it on. Just be like, okay, let's see what's happening here. Or I don't know, Buffalo and Minnesota, if the fighting Pete Limbo's going into Minnesota there. So I'll keep an eye on that one too.
Absolutely. And tonight, Carolina calls as well. So
that's right. It's a loaded day. Yes. Like just all over the place. Going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. And, tonight you'll hear from Coach Beamer, but we did get to hear from him yesterday. And as expected, he did talk about the depth chart or lack thereof and was asked at the very end just exactly how many position battles are still happening going into this weekend.
Well, competition is a core value of our program, and we say we compete every day, so all of them, okay? I'd be a hypocrite if they weren't. That's just the case. Now, is it going to be hard for somebody to beat out Lenora Sellers as a quarterback? Yeah, probably so, but we're competing each and every day in practice.
Do we expect a different answer? Or it's open competition, everybody's fighting, all spots up for grabs. That's kind of what I expected.
I respect it was Jared Parker from Watch who asked that question. I fully respect Jared for asking that question, but I mean he was walking right into a trap asking that question. Like what kind of answer you're getting there from Shane because he's not going to give you the depth chart. Like there's a reason why.
Sure.
He literally said why he wasn't going to give the depth chart just because he wanted to, avoid the overreactions and stuff.
I do think it's interesting that he did say that he told Brent Pry last week, like, hey, we're not going to release a depth chart. I just don't want you to be caught off guard by that. And Virginia Tech still put theirs out.
It's even more confusing why Virginia Tech did that because it seems like from the VT side of things with those guys who cover them, it seems like they don't get the depth chart all too often. So it's a little surprising, honestly. Maybe it's because there's so many new faces on Virginia Tech. I mean, I can't really put my pinpoint what it is.
Yeah, and I don't know necessarily how much that helps South Carolina, if it even does at all. Like, all right, okay, so we see that Marcellus Hawkins is probably going to be your starting running back. I feel like if you, and because I'm sure there's somebody that's listening to Brent Pry's press conferences over there in the football office that's, taking bits and pieces out of it. If you just listen to Brent Pry talk, he tells you a lot of what's happening. He's very open about where the team's at. Again, we were surprised. We talked about it yesterday, what he said about their offensive line, because he was like, oh, we're not where we need to be. I'm like, dang, I don't know if I'd say that if I was a coach ahead of game number 1. You know what I mean? Like, he's very open and honest about what's going on with his team. So I don't know if Carolina having the depth chart necessarily helps them out more than just listening to what he has to say, but we'll take whatever advantage we can get, I guess.
I guess so. So, I mean, look, I'm still I think South Carolina's going to win this game, but I'm just, It might be closer than a lot of people think. I don't know, but I also could see this being an absolute blowout. I mean, I just can't really get a gauge on what Virginia Tech is going to be like.
If this game was like in week 3, I'd feel pretty confident in saying that, yeah, I think Carolina's likely going to win this one pretty comfortably. But and I included this in my stat picks prediction for Gamecock Central. I do think there's going to be some bumps. I do think there's going to be some mistakes being made, maybe some turnovers, those kind of things that can allow Virginia Tech to make this more interesting. I still think South Carolina's going to win, but I don't think it's going to be like, oh, hey, they won by 4 touchdowns or something like that.
No, it won't be. I would be shocked if South Carolina won this game by 4 touchdowns. Win by 2 scores and cover? Now, I think they're going to cover.
Yeah.
I mean, the line is, what, 7.5 now? It's kind of moved a little bit all over the place. It was at like 9.5. It was at, I think it was almost at 10. So, I mean, the fact that it's down a little bit to almost a touchdown, I think if South Carolina wins, they're going to be able to cover that.
I was curious to see if it might move at all since the Faison news came out.
Yeah.
Back in the direction of South Carolina a little bit more, but it doesn't seem to have done that.
Now, what do you think it would have gone up to? Maybe like 8?
And maybe a point, something like that.
It should, potentially.
Just because and again, both these teams have a lot of question marks, but that becomes one less question mark, I guess, for South Carolina with an established 1,000-plus yard back from Utah State. That, again, I wasn't expecting to be a huge swing, but maybe a point or so.
I do want to pose this question, and not to completely go off track from what we're talking about, but with Faison back, what do you feel like that does for South Carolina? How would you view South Carolina record-wise before we knew he was coming back, and now that he is coming back? Because I think, honestly, for me, I'm working on my predictions for the season game by game. I honestly think it gives South Carolina a chance to get to 10 wins potentially.
I don't know if it necessarily changes my overall opinion. I still think your ceiling's about 10-2, and your floor, I think, is at worst probably about 7-5. So floating somewhere in the middle of 8 to 9 wins, I think was possible before the Faison news, and I think it's possible after the Faison news. I don't know if it necessarily drastically alters the way I think the season's going to go.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought about it like that just because it's like, all right, he's an 1,100-yard rusher. You see what he can do on tape. Add something that South Carolina desperately needs at the running back position to a group that should be pretty good this year overall.
One thing I did hear from Beamer yesterday that concerned me involved what he had to say about the kicking battle, which apparently is still ongoing as we head into game number 1 this upcoming weekend. We'll dive in to what he said about kickers coming up next as the Extra Point rolls along. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri along with you on your Thursday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you on your Thursday here on the game. Coming up in the next segment at 9:30, going to be talking to Ryan Nanny of the Shutdown Fullcast. Talk all things college football with him as we get set for week number 1. But we're focusing in on what Coach Beamer had to say yesterday when talking to the media as the last media availability before week number 1, and we'll hear from him tonight on Carolina Calls, as well as the final thoughts ahead of Sunday's matchup against Virginia Tech, which we are just a tick under 78 hours away from kickoff as it's getting closer and closer. But one thing I heard yesterday that really concerned me was when Coach Beamer was asked about where the kicking battle stands, where, again, we don't have a depth chart for this week, so we don't know exactly who's slated to be the number 1 kicker going into Sunday. Here's what he had to say about how that competition's going.
I'm a lot closer than what I was on August 1st when we started practice. Just to be completely honest, I wish we had kicked a little better today and Monday, Sunday, whatever day it was, Sunday in the football world, Monday in the real world. Not that we were bad, but, you know, being a perfectionist, you want to hit everything and confident in those guys as we get into Sunday, without a doubt. But we've come a long way. They've all improved. I like where we are on special teams, not just punters, kickers, snappers, but coverage units, return units, all that. It's a big point of emphasis for us, and we need to be really good at it on Sunday. And we've got quality, talented guys, don't get me wrong, more than one at each position. When I talk about the punter and the kicker and the kickoff person as well, just want to see more and more consistency all the time from those guys, and confident that we will.
I don't love that answer. It doesn't give me the most confidence going into the weekend.
No, it doesn't really give me a ton of confidence. Whether it's Mason Love, William Joyce, Peyton Argent, Max Kelly, it's not exactly ideal to hear something like that. Kind of honestly feels like last year in a lot of ways, where we go back to, I can't remember the exact quote of what Beamer said, but I do recall there were being some concerns after scrimmages and stuff when we would talk to him. So, I mean, look, it just feels like another year where you're going to be coming in with some big question marks at kicking, and hopefully he's right. Hopefully things will be good come Sunday, and he's confident they will be. So
that's such a tricky part about kicking competitions, right? Is you can look one way in practice or in scrimmages and look completely different when you're actually out there on the field. And I know Chris and Wes bring this up a lot, but a couple years ago, it was Alex Herrera and Mitch Jeter that were apparently locked in a neck-and-neck fight going into the season. And, Mitch Jeter obviously ends up winning the job and doesn't make a field goal the entire season. Obviously, Alex Herrera ends up winning the job last year. As you mentioned, though, there was some hesitation in terms of the confidence going into the beginning of the year. And, he did okay, but he did miss some critical kicks in games like LSU and Alabama and stuff like that, which could have certainly helped South Carolina potentially have a better record than they did a season ago, though he also had a big kick like against Clemson, which ended up helping them, win that game. But this is, again, it's so unique to be in the situation that they are, where you're replacing all of your specialists for a team that puts so much emphasis and cares so much about special teams, and it's in Beamer's DNA, obviously, with Beamer ball and all that kind of stuff. It is an uneasiness that I have right now going into the season, really, until we see somebody go out there and make the kick, right? You can say, all right, well, it's going to be William Joyce or it's going to be Mason Love. Okay, well, I still need to see the results to have confidence in them.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Like, that first kick, whenever it is, if it is this weekend, it's like a 45-yard kick or whatever, and they miss it, well, then your heart's going to sink a little bit, just because it's like, oh, man, here we go again with the kicking situation. And South Carolina's normally had a good history of kicking here. They've had their Elliott Fries and Parker Whites and Ryan Suckups, guys like that. It's like they've had good kickers for years now. But now we could be entering this little stretch here where you have, Alex Herrera was okay last year. 71% is what Elliott Fry had during one of his seasons at South Carolina. He's revered as one of the best kickers in program history. So I think we said it a few weeks ago. You want to shoot for about 80% as a kicker. I feel like this year, you feel really good about that. But again, it's just not going to do much for the confidence if they go out there and struggle out of the gate.
Well, and if, Herrera was coming back for a second year, I'd have a lot more confidence saying, okay, he's got a year of experience under his belt. He's experienced some of those big moments and all that kind of stuff. I would expect a step forward in year number 2, but unfortunately he was out of eligibility because he was a 6th-year senior last year, so you're starting back from square number 1. And again, when I go back to what Beamer said there, it's not him saying, hey, man, both these guys, let's just talk about William Joyce and, and Mason Love, for example, both these guys just making all their kicks and, they're not missing anything and they're nailing it from 45, 50, 55 yards. I don't know how to choose between the two compared to, wish we would have made some more kicks the other day, or this week hasn't gone very well. Like, there's two different ways to answer that question, and he answered that question in the way that I don't love hearing.
No, it's not very awe-inspiring. It's very just meh at best right now. So I don't necessarily have a lot of hope, but again, things can change. So
and it's much different. And I know, like at the spring game, they did their little kicking competition where Beamer got on the microphone and encouraged, hey, let's make some noise and get as loud as you can and all that kind of stuff. And all the teammates were surrounding them and trying to throw the kickers off and all that kind of stuff. You can simulate a lot of those things, but you can't fully simulate kicking in front of nearly 100,000 people, especially an opposing fan base of 100,000 people. They're trying to rattle you, other coaches icing you, calling timeouts and stuff like that. So even with the first couple games, when you're, playing in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which I think it'll be, if not half, more than half full of Gamecock fans playing at home the next couple weeks. Really, it's that Missouri game, right? When you're going on the road for the first time, facing a critical situation on the road with, again, an opposing fan base that's going to be jeering at you the entire time, that's when I'll hopefully have my confidence in whoever the kicker is by them making some clutch kicks there.
No, absolutely. So it's just, you don't want to hear it. Again, Shane does such a good job of, he's honest. That's the thing about him
which I appreciate,
which I can admire and I respect. And in this case, he was definitely honest about, like, he literally said, just to be completely honest, I wish we kicked a little better today and Monday. Like, I can respect that, but I don't think that's, again, honesty is great, but not everyone is going to want to hear that the kicking situation. But I think people just know, like, coming into this year, it's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows.
But it's better to let people know the truth than him, lying to us and saying, hey, everybody's doing great. They're making all these kicks and we're feeling good. And then you get to Sunday and whoever trots out there, misses 2 out of 4 kicks or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just whoever's out there is going to have a really big challenge of quite frankly, not screwing it up. I mean, that's a lot of pressure for a guy that, whoever it is, again, Love, Joyce, whoever, it's going to be tough.
Well, like Beamer said, we'll find out 28 minutes before kickoff who's playing in what positions, I guess.
Yeah. So definitely, we will definitely all be, the media members will all be glued into warm-ups as we should.
Yes, your kickoff's at 3:10, then at 3:42.
2:42.
Or 2:42, sorry. At 2:42, I'm checking Jack Veltry's Twitter to see what he says about what units are looking like the starting lineups.
Oh, that's pressure on me. Now, I'll probably be posting that on GamecockCentral.com. I don't need to give any help to my colleagues out there in the world.
That's a fair point. So that's coming up Sunday again, 3 o'clock or 3:10 kick, whatever it is, which you can listen to right here on the game. By the way, starts off with Gamecocks game day that morning with myself and Terry Ford over at O'Hara's doing our pregame show from 10 until 12, and then network coverage takes over leading up to kickoff at 3 o'clock. We'll talk to Ryan Nanny of the Shutdown Fullcast coming up next as we bounce around everything happening in the college football world as the Extra Point rolls along. It's our head and Jack Veltry along with you on your Thursday on the game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you here on your Thursday on the game. Excited for week one to get rolling proper coming up tonight, and here to talk about all things going on in the world of college football from the Shutdown Fullcast is our guy once again, Ryan Nanny, joining us on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Ryan, appreciate you taking your time this morning. How many of the 17 games tonight do you find yourself tuning in for?
Oh, that's a fun question, and the answer is it depends on how easily my 3-year-old decides to stay in bed.
Ooh.
So that's the X factor that I can't control for.
I was gonna say, is it a 3-year-old that is good with watching football with you, or is it a constant like, oh, I got to do something else with the 3-year-old, and I got to find time to get football in?
That's the other thing we're gonna find out. I feel like it changes every week. So I feel like a college football coach where I'm excited to see what week one holds in store, and we really won't know until Toe touches Lester.
Well, that's kind of the way we're feeling about South Carolina, and we've heard from Beamer a million times this offseason, including yesterday, and we still have a lot of questions going into this weekend's matchup against Virginia Tech. When you look at South Carolina, what stands out to you, and kind of what are your expectations of this team this year?
The defensive pieces lost feel like the most obvious question, I suppose, or the thing that feels like stood out from last season and is now like, okay, well, what does that mean going forward? That said, South Carolina is not the first team or the only team who's lost, standout defenders to the next level, and it doesn't mean you're done. I think that's probably the first thing I am interested in seeing, especially against a power opponent like Virginia Tech. Is sort of like, okay, what does the defense look like, both in terms of personnel, but also how does that sort of shift what the Gamecocks decide to do on the field? Like, are they going to try to get pressure in other ways? Are they going to try to help the secondary in other ways? Like, I think it's an interesting sort of ongoing question for them, and I think it's nice that we get to sort of solve some of those questions right out the gate, or at least see where the answers start to point.
Hey, Ryan, it's Jack here. Appreciate you joining us. Now, on the flip side, Carolina playing Virginia Tech on Sunday. I think a lot of us are still kind of wondering, what is this Virginia Tech team going to be? I'm not asking you to forecast how they're going to be this year necessarily, but, what can we expect? Is there going to potentially be marginal improvement? Because, again, there's 50 new guys on this team, a lot of changes with the coordinators and stuff. What is something that we need to be looking out for with this Virginia Tech team this year?
I think the biggest – this is, sort of my gut opinion based on the games I watched last year from the Hokies. This is a team that really struggled with consistency, it felt like. The Vanderbilt game really stuck out as, like, tackling didn't look great. This is a team that, would get penalties that they didn't need to. The Miami game sort of felt like they were all over the place in some good ways and some bad ways. So I don't know if the turnover that you're talking about helps or hurts in that way. And I guess I look at it and sort of say that's the biggest problem that they have to solve, because when Virginia Tech is sort of playing up to its potential, it can be a very good football team, and it can be a very competitive football team, but that lack of consistency is the thing that I think has plagued them, not just last year. It feels like for the last, 10 years or something like that at this point. And so if they can just find a way to sort of answer that question for themselves of who are we, what do we do well, and how do we do that repeatedly, I think that will be the thing that it shows that they're ready to make a bigger step towards not being sort of mired in the 6-7 win category that they're in right now.
Ryan Nanny joining us on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Of course, the biggest matchup the entire weekend, Texas versus Ohio State up in Columbus at noon on Saturday. Where are you in terms of the Arch Manning hype train going into the season?
Is it a cop-out if I just say excited? I'm fine with all the hype. He has the name he has. He plays for the program he does. It is interesting that he has sort of, taken a back seat for the last couple of years. And I think at the time, nobody really sort of sat with that and sort of said, okay, well, what does that look like when he actually comes out and plays? Mostly because I think we thought, well, there's no way at some point Quinn Ewers is going to struggle, Sark is going to flip the switch, they're going to bring him in, and it just didn't work out that way. I'm mostly just excited about it because I think we're going to see ups and downs because that's how it goes when you're a college football quarterback. Like, there's going to be an adjustment period, but that doesn't mean that he can't do well. Now, will he live up to the hype? Man, I have no idea, because I think the hype is a thing that will evolve based on how he does week one. Like, if he goes out there, if Arch goes out there and dominates Ohio State, the hype goes through the roof. The expectations for the rest of the year are unmanageable. Like, at that point, it's you better beat everybody you play by 20. You better throw 4 touchdowns for every pick.
With the LSU-Clemson game on Saturday, LSU's lost 5 straight openers, and 4 of them are under Brian Kelly now, I believe. How much does Brian Kelly need to win this game on Saturday? Like, what happens for him if they don't win this game, you think?
I actually don't think it's that critical. I think because this is a Clemson team that is held in pretty high esteem coming into this season. I think because it's on the road, and I think because the way everything is structured right now, all of LSU's potential and goals will still be in front of them. I don't think it has the sort of weight of, like, if you drop this, the season is crushed. Like, you can still play for an SEC title. You can still make a playoff. You still have a bunch of marquee opponents that you can show out well against. Now, that said, I do think they need to play well against Clemson. I think if you show up and the defense looks a mess still, that becomes the kind of thing where you say, okay, this is a lingering problem that has shown up in past seasons, and if it's going to continue this season, that is going to be what hampers LSU and what keeps them from greater achievements.
A couple more minutes here with Ryan Nanny on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. We learned last week that the College Football Playoff Committee is adjusting the way it views your wins and losses with this record strength metric that I think a lot of us thought was already being done. But regardless, they're saying they're taking a different approach. Do you think that actually changes the way they look at teams, and it's going to alter the way the rankings are going to come out later on this year?
I think it will. In the early stages, I think it will sort of impact, and I think it will mostly impact where they're slotting teams. If I go back and look at last season's playoff, I sort of say, well, I don't know that I can definitively say that they should have put in a 3-loss SEC team over a 1-loss Indiana team. And I know the schedule strength arguments, but I think the difference in the loss column sort of mattered a lot. And some of it also had to do with when those losses were happening. Like with LSU, for example, folding to Florida down the stretch, that was a bad time to do that. Same thing with Ole Miss. I do think, however, though, that the thing that is consistent about college football's playoff going back to the BCS is we're always trying to tweak it based on what happened last year. And the biggest problem with that is that this year is going to present new challenges and new unexpected twists and turns. And I think that's part of what makes college football a lot of fun to watch. And it makes it really hard to manage because, we saw this when in the BCS era when it was like, oh, we're changing the computer formulas and the weighting of this and that. It never felt like, oh, okay, you guys landed on something that everyone was happy with and everyone agreed was like totally straightforward and fair. And that's just a consequence of you have 130 plus teams who mostly don't play each other and mostly don't play in the same leagues together.
Got about another 2 minutes here, Ryan. Appreciate you joining us again. I'll ask you just a pretty straightforward, simple question. Might be a hard thing for you to answer, but who is your sleeper team in the sport of college football in 2025?
Oh man, that is a fun question to answer. I will say the team that I am most interested in, I don't know if they're my sleeper, is Oklahoma this year. I think that is the team that I feel like has the most, it's time to step up and show that you can get back to where you have been, because I'm just so used to, over the last 20 years, Oklahoma just being a mainstay in the top 10, the top 5, the college football playoff, the conference championships. And what has happened there in the last couple of years has just been kind of astonishing. And it feels like this is the make or break year for them in a lot of ways. Maybe not necessarily in a we're going to go and we're going to play in the national championship game, but I will be interested to see if Oklahoma can be a bigger force in college football than they have been over the last couple of years.
Well, as long as they don't win when they come to Columbia in October, that's all we care about.
Yeah, here's what we want. We want Oklahoma to be good enough that if South Carolina wins that game, it's a good check mark in their favor.
Exactly, and with that record strength, that would probably help you out a whole lot. So,
exactly.
We'll see what happens when that game comes along. Ryan, we appreciate your time, appreciate your work, and can't wait to see what Week 1 has in store.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Here's Ryan Naney of the Shutdown Fullcast. We'll come back, wrap up hour number 1 of the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you on your Thursday here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher wrapping up hour number 1 with you on your Tuesday. Here on the game, tomorrow begins a busy weekend for us. The Schroeder's Towing Road Show will be out at Darlington for the early game with Elijah, Preston, and Jen from 6 until 9. Then I'll be out there from 9 until noon as well, broadcasting from the track as we get set for not only College Football Week 1, but the Cookout Southern 500 as well. And also have some more tickets to give away for Saturday's NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series Sober or Slammer 200 as they get their playoffs rolling as well. But, of course, our focus here today is on college football. And if you're a subscriber of YouTube TV, you're probably a little bit worried about, am I going to get to watch games this weekend, starting with Baylor and Auburn on Friday night. Of course, Texas and Ohio State coming up on Saturday. And thankfully, for at least the short term, it appears Fox and YouTube TV have come to a temporary agreement.
Yeah, that's what we all wanted to hear. Not necessarily ideal that it's temporary, but still, it's something that will hold us off a little bit until they can finally come to some sort of agreement. So that's what we all wanted to hear, to be honest, and glad we're going to get to watch college football as it should be this weekend on Fox.
Yeah, and again, we talked about this yesterday. It's the unfortunate part about being a customer and all this is you do nothing wrong and yet you suffer because these, billionaire companies can't agree on a few dollars and cents here and there. And again, they know what they're doing when they, push the chips up against football. I remember, again, ESPN 2 years ago where they went dark on Spectrum and maybe another service too, I can't remember, quite literally as Florida and Utah were kicking off their week 1 game on that Thursday night. And I can't imagine, I think about these kind of things, right? And I think about the customer service representatives at these respective places that have nothing to do with these contracts, but are just taking angry phone call after angry phone call after angry phone call, probably getting called everything but a child of God by the people on the phones when they really can't have any control over it. And they're trying to give the answer of, well, we're working on it. We're trying to get something worked out, and just dealing with angry football fan after angry football fan.
Yeah, but people are pissed. I mean, look, they want to watch football. It's so absurd that this comes up right before kickoff.
Yeah.
Is it not strange that this is all just happening right before the season gets going?
Well, it gets more attention that way.
It does. But it's like, come on, let's come to an agreement. Let's do what's best for the people. But again, it's never about us. It's never about the average fans. It's always about the money and trying to, get the most profit in your pockets, I guess. So,
by the way, how many different streaming subscription services do you have to be subscribed to take in all of college football this year?
Let me just say, it's absolutely ridiculous how many freaking subscriptions you have just to watch not just football, but with baseball you got to have Apple TV, Prime, so many different applications. Roku.
With the baseball thing, I'm not giving in to Apple TV on that. I'm what?
I'll just listen on the radio.
I was I can miss a game. It's all right. And there's what? I think the Braves have played 2 or 3 times that Friday night Apple TV game. I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
It ain't worth it. I'm not paying for Apple TV just because of that.
And you have the MLB. I have the MLB TV subscriction, but hey, you can't watch the Braves because they're always blacked out.
Right.
And also,
that's the thing is it blacks out your local team. For you, it's great because the Yankees.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to watch the local team, then we can't do that.
Yeah, but they don't show Apple TV either or Roku. So it's you just don't win in a lot of ways there. But look, with football, I mean, you need so many subscriptions. I mean, let's see. Actually, it's probably not as many as MLB and stuff. Even NFL has gotten bad with Netflix and stuff. I mean, it's what happened to just having it on? I know cable is not for everybody. What just happened to having it on the 4 or 5 core channels of NBC, ESPN, CBS, Fox? I mean,
well, because there's more money to be made.
Of course. Everything revolves around money.
When Amazon Prime comes forward and says, hey, we'll pay you X billion dollars to show your crappy Thursday night game, the NFL's like, all right, go ahead. We'll give you a half a Wake Al Michaels and a Kirk Herbstreit that is too energized for a Thursday night game. Sure.
Yeah, I'm glad, honestly, I'm glad sports bars have kind of figured it out to where I've never been to a sports bar where they've had the Netflix game on. I think that's always just a Christmas game, right?
Last year was Christmas. I think they're expanding it out this year, if I remember correctly. I know Christmas is going to be on Netflix again. They may be doing another game. Don't quote me on that.
So I'll be interested to see what that looks like if I were to ever go to a bar. One of us did, and it's just like, hey, like there's a Netflix game on, because they do a pretty good job of having the Prime games on.
The one thing that bothers me about the games that are on streaming is if you have like notifications on your phone for your favorite team and it's a streaming game, sometimes you'll get the notification before the thing happens on TV. So if like, hey, Carolina's playing a game on like ESPN Plus or something like that, and you say, oh, I get the notification on my phone, hey, Lenora Sellers runs for a 20-yard touchdown, and then I see it on TV. I don't like that. So you always got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's the one thing where I think cable has the benefit, is that
it does
typically ahead.
Because I have Spectrum, and we have cable box, but I typically just do the streaming through the Roku app. And like if I'm watching a Braves game, that's what happens is I'll get the notification of the score before it actually happens, and then like 5 seconds later I see it.
So it's just, I mean, with college football, I don't know, what do you have an exact count of how many?
So ESPN Plus has a lot of games now.
Yeah.
Peacock, if you don't have NBC.
Peacock. Oh my God.
I'm trying to think here. Well, as we learned last week, apparently you can watch Mountain West games on Prime because they have some kind of agreement. Like if you're trying to skirt around, if you don't have regular TV, if you want CBS, that's Paramount Plus. Fox has its new thing that we talked about the other day as kind of the loophole if they didn't figure out the YouTube TV thing that I'm assuming you'll be able to watch Fox games on. So if you're not a traditional cable subscriber, you're going to be paying somewhere around probably another $50 to $60 in just streaming services alone.
Dude, it's getting so expensive, man. Let's put the consumer first in the future, please.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll do it for hour number one of the X Point. Coming up next, Chris Clark will jump in here, and we'll dive back into what Coach Beamer had to say as your Thursday rolls along here on the game. 10 o'clock, welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour now, brought to you by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head, Jack Belcher, Chris Clark along with you here on your Thursday on the game as we get you set for week 1 of college football. They do say you always learn something new every single day. And per our last conversation at the end of last hour about streaming services, our guy Michael from Integrated Media actually hit me up and said the streaming games are still on DirecTV commercial channels for sports bars. They also still have Sunday Ticket for commercial as well. So when you're watching a game at a sports bar that is on streaming or whatever, they get it in a more direct way through like the commercial actual regular DirecTV, I guess. So maybe that's where the complications of Netflix is coming in, of not quite being there yet. Though, again, I think it's only Christmas games for the NFL right now.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to a sports bar on Christmas Day.
I'd be intrigued to know which sports bar is open on Christmas Day.
Not me, but I could see it.
I mean,
there's
somebody
probably
out there.
there's a market.
Yeah,
probably.
If you're a sports bar in vicinity of the stadium where the game is being played, I imagine you're probably open because you got people that tailgaters hang out that don't go to the game. Like, I'll go to the bar, and I'm sure there's a bar next to Lambeau Field or something like that you could go and
Well, they got
watch.
Titletown around there, right?
Yeah. So I'm sure.
Which I would love to go.
What bar in Columbia would be open to go to?
Gosh, that's a question I probably couldn't answer.
We're not going to give them any.
We're not.
No.
They got to pay for that advertising.
They do.
Yeah.
But
they can do buy or sell.
they can.
do
Hey, listen, we got
trivia.
Well,
If you want to do the last 3 days of trivia, we'll get you
two
signed
days
up.
now.
2 days, yes.
Do you want to do like a 1 day to kick off just for the heck of it to throw in there, since we're not going to have a 1 day to kick off as like a bonus maybe
Yeah,
tomorrow?
we'll do a 2.
2 and a 1.
2 and a 1. Yeah, I forget. Yeah, that's a good point. But the lesson I've learned from all this is, if you have questions about like anything related to streaming or like what you need to do to watch the game and watch it in a cool way, you need to hit up Michael and Integrated Media.
Yeah,
like he knows all that. I'm like, Michael, what? I'm in Montana. I want to watch this game. He's like, yeah, I got you.
Yeah, well,
I know exactly what to do.
We quite literally wouldn't be streaming without those guys. They set up all this stuff because we're not smart enough to do it.
Yes. Yeah. One-stop shop. Check them out.
So, shout out to those guys. Getting back into what Coach Beamer had to say yesterday, started off his press conference, as we expected, giving a little bit of an update on Tavarian Robertson and where things are at with him in terms of his recovery.
Update on Travian Robertson, obviously really serious accident last week. Truthfully, he's very lucky to be alive as well. He will not be with us this weekend in Atlanta. He will be back soon. I've talked to him. I've seen him since the wreck, and I've talked to him as well, and he's eager to get back out here and will be as soon as possible. Everyone knows what this place means to him and how much it hurts him not to be here with us right now, but his health is the primary thing, and had some pretty serious stuff happen to him in that wreck. So I would ask for continued thoughts and prayers for he and his family. But he is going to be okay. It's nothing long term. It's just physically he's not able to be down on the sidelines at a game right now as well. So Jordan Dove, who works closely with our defensive line, is essentially the defensive line coach right now, working with the tackles. Obviously, Sterling Lucas is heavily involved, being that his position lines up next to the tackles, and then we've got a really talented defensive staff, and everybody's responsibilities need to increase in Travian's absence in the short term. This won't be a all-year thing by any stretch of the imagination, but just this week and until Travian gets back.
So, again, continuing to think and pray for, obviously, Travian Robertson there, and, again, lucky to be alive, given the nature of that wreck that unfortunately did claim the life of, the other person involved in the other vehicle. But we don't know the timetable, but it does sound encouraging that he's going to get back on the sidelines. But in the meantime, that is a pretty large responsibility being placed on the shoulders of, Jordan Dove there, stepping in to be basically the temporary defensive line coach. And Chris, you may be able to answer this question better. What do people need to know about Jordan Dove and who he is and the role that he's taken on now?
Yeah, Jordan's a really cool story, actually. the guys really, really like him, and he's really involved, too, in recruiting. You know, if you go out at the summer camps for prospects, you know, covering recruiting, Jordan's out there working camp. He's got a lot of energy. He's got a lot of knowledge, and he's worked his way up in the business where he started here at South Carolina in the equipment room as an intern, you know, and there's typically story. I remember, you know, Eric Spoelstra from the Miami Heat started as like a video intern, and then all of a sudden not all of a sudden, years later, you know, he's the head coach of an NBA team. And so, you know, you hear stories about things like this, paths like this, and obviously this is only temporary, but the point is I think Jordan has the goods to, you know, maybe be a defensive line coach one day at a school. Started as an intern, then he moved up to working with the defensive line as an undergrad, graduated from South Carolina so in 2023, so he loves this place. And he's very involved, you know, just on a daily, week-to-week basis. So I was kind of wondering, hey, who is going to get, you know, would Adrian Hubbard, who works with the staff, maybe move over to defensive tackle and help those guys? But Jordan makes a lot of sense to me. It's also interesting, you know, Aiden Harris, who's one of South Carolina's 4-star defensive tackle commitments in this class, just absolutely raved about Jordan Dove. He said they have like a lifelong bond. He was actually a big reason, you know, for Aiden Harris feeling comfortable enough to commit to South Carolina. So I think he's a guy that's got respect from the guys in this room. He has knowledge. Certainly not ideal, right, to not have your on-field coach. The most important thing is that Travian Robertson gets himself, you know, healthy and back on the field as soon as possible. But this is someone I think everybody trusts, you know, and has a lot of familiarity with the roster.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely feel good about making this move. It seemed like this was going to be the way they were heading. Or you mentioned Hubbard is another option they could have gone with. But this is a cool opportunity for him because, again, like Chris said, I mean, he started out as an intern here at South Carolina, working the equipment room, and now he's all the way up to, you know, he's been an assistant working with T-Rob in the defensive line. Like, he's always been out there right next to Travian working with him. So it's pretty cool that he's got this opportunity in front of him. Now, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with it. The biggest thing that Shane said yesterday was that substitutions is going to be the top priority and responsibility for this weekend. Like, all the work is done going into the game. All the work is done during the week. So, like, right now, there's a lot going on. But once you get to game day, it's those substitutions that are going to be critical to make.
And Preston brought up this point earlier when he and Elijah were talking about it. And, of course, he's a defensive lineman himself, so he knows it better than all of us. And it's a unique situation where you have now a first-time defensive line coach, at least in an acting role for the time being, coupled with a completely relatively new defensive line unit. Yeah, good guys like Goodwine and you know, Nick Barrett are back from a year ago, but pretty much everybody else in there is brand new. So you can have an idea through camp and scrimmages and stuff like that of who's going to work where and that kind of stuff, but there's a game flow and things like that you're not going to really know until you actually get out there, and that's a big undertaking for somebody like Jordan Dove and his first time acting in this role to have the responsibility of doing that, understanding who's going to go in where, and, you know, obviously coordinating with Clayton White and all that kind of stuff to make sure the right guys get on the field for what they need. So, you know, you can't lie and say it's not going to be a challenge because it is.
I think it's a challenge, you know, for anybody, you know, when the week-to-week basis, you know, you get into the game and things start happening and things, you know, there's always adversity throughout the course of a game. You know, Shane Beamer, too, it wasn't in that part of the clip that we played, Tyler, earlier, but, you know, they meet on this time Sunday morning, normally Saturday morning. They're going to meet on Sunday morning and kind of go through, all right, what do we think about who's playing when, you know, and so they will have a good idea of that generally going into the game. Hey, you know, just as an example, Barrett and Goodwine, who we kind of think are going to be the starters, especially Barrett, you know, these guys, and I'm just making this up as an example, they get the first two series, then we're going with the next group. Or, you know, he mentioned Clayton White in certain situations may call down and say, hey, we need this particular package or we need this particular twist or game run up front, make sure it's done. You know, knowing what I know about Jordan, he is on it. You know, I think he's, you know, if you go out there, if you're ever at practice and you see the drills that Travian Robertson are running, Jordan Dove's right there, right in the mix. He's given instruction too. It's kind of his right-hand man, so he's really familiar with how things are running. I think he's a sharp guy. Like I said, really energetic. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. It's with the position group that, as you said, Tyler, it does carry some questions. So, will they lean? Will Nick Barrett's importance on that roster, for game one or however long this goes on, will it be amplified? Probably so. But I think that was the case anyway. You look at the group that they had last year, you had a lot of team leaders, a Tonka Hemingway, a Boogie, Jules in his 6th year of college football, TJ Sanders. I don't want to give the impression that room could run itself, right? That's diminishing the job that the coaches did, but that helps you a lot when you've got a group with that much experience. They've got some guys here that have played football, especially Nick Barrett. Shane Beamer pointed out he's been here as long as I have. So that helps. If you were going into this thing with, okay, we have all true freshmen, you're probably even more nervous about it. But I think Jordan's going to do a really good job with that group.
I think it's not necessarily that it's a seamless transition, because there is a lot of responsibility that does go into this job like we talked about before. But I think it's going to be something where you have the keys to the car. Now it's just all right, just drive straight. Don't crash the car. So I think things are going to be fine moving forward. And like Chris said, I'll also back up what he said about the energy and stuff. I mean, we see it in practice when we were out there throughout fall camp. Like he said, Jordan's very involved. He brings off a lot of good energy that, the players, I could see why the players really like him. And even at the Birdies with Beamer golf tournament, I mean, he wasn't playing in the tournament, but he was driving around on the golf course and stuff with the carts and was having a lot of fun out there. So you can see why South Carolina really likes him and feels confident in his ability to do the job out there.
I feel like you have to have good energy to coach D-line, because you're in the trenches, you're getting nasty, you need to bring it. You can't be calm and cool and all that kind of stuff. You got to have some fire behind you.
And Travian himself is very intense in practice. I can remember a few times where they're hitting the sled. I think it was the spring maybe. They were hitting the sleds, and I just hear him screaming and stuff. And it's very intense, but it's I see why it's like that, because you need to be hard on these kids sometimes, but you also want to bring that energy that is going to really help.
So we'll see how that goes on Sunday with the defensive line as they take on a lot of unknowns on that Virginia Tech offense, and we'll get more into what Beamer had to say as the morning goes along. But we finally have more football coming on tonight, as we'll dive into some of the matchups tonight and tomorrow as Week 1 gets rolling proper, as the Garnet Trust Tower presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating rolls on your Thursday on the game.
All right, everyone, one of our great partners here on the program, our friends over at Classic Roofing, Joe Reeder, Max Sawyer. They have families that live right here in the Midlands, so you're going to be working with a local, reliable company when you work with the folks over at Classic Roofing. Taking good care of your roof can absolutely be challenging. The good news, you don't have to go at it alone. Years of expertise under their hats at Classic Roofing. They've been the go-to residential and commercial roofing company for home and business owners around the Midlands, the Columbia area for years now. 803-590-7870 is where you can call, and you can go to classicroofingsc.com. They do commercial and residential inspections, installations, replacements, and repairs. They're a reliable GAF certified roofer. Only about 7% of companies nationwide even have that designation, that certification. So classicroofingsc.com. You can even visualize your roof. You can get a free estimate, classicroofingsc.com.
Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head, Jack Belcher, Chris Clark along with you on your Thursday here on the game as Week 1 gets rolling coming up tonight. For a lot of years, Carolina was typically the team in the SEC playing on Thursday night. A lot of times they did that during the Spurrier era. I believe, 2014 was that the last time we had the Thursday kickoff?
That was his A&M, right?
Yeah, the A&M, the SEC Network game that we all don't want to talk about anymore.
Kenny Trill.
The Kenny Hill game. And you're talking about for opening kickoff.
Yeah,
games, right?
For opening kickoff.
So,
that was the last time they opened on a Thursday, if I remember correctly.
Because NC State was the last Thursday game in general.
Yes.
A few years ago.
Which that got moved because of weather.
Yeah.
So, in the Muschamp/Beamer era, it's been pretty straightforward Saturdays with the exception of this weekend where you're playing on Sunday. And I think Missouri, if I remember correctly, I think they opened up on Thursday last year or the year before.
It seems like they have been on weekdays for a few years now.
They've kind of been the team that's taken that throne as like, oh, the SEC team that now opens up on Thursdays, I guess, kind of like South Carolina used to, which I can get from like an Eli Drinkwitz perspective. You're a program that, for one, people don't respect as much in the SEC, but one that could use more exposure. So why not play on Thursday night when people are watching?
Disrespect intended?
Disrespect intended.
Do you think people don't respect Missouri?
Oh, I know people don't respect Missouri.
Do you respect Missouri?
Well, like, you mean like as a team or just like people
just like
think they're
as a fit in the SEC?
Yeah.
You know, like
they're an outcast.
Like A&M came in and everybody's like, oh yeah, A&M in the SEC, that makes sense. Like Missouri, I feel like has never been like fully accepted yet.
Yeah.
Despite they've had success, they went to back-to-back SEC championships and have had some good teams the past couple of years with Eli Drinkwitz. But I feel like everybody's kind of like, yeah, you're just you're over there. You know what I mean?
Have either of y'all been to Como?
I have not.
I have.
What do you think?
So I didn't spend a ton of time there. We were there what was that? The 2013 game, the crazy, overtime game.
Was that the field goal that doinked off?
The doink game, the Connor Shaw game. But there were many Connor Shaw games, but that was the one where he came in. They're down 17-3. They end up winning the game. Fourth and 15 touchdown to Bruce Ellington, right there in the Gamecock section. Yeah, I mean, I spent actually the most time. We stayed in St. Louis, and then we went over to Como. So I didn't spend a ton of time there. What I saw, I was like, eh.
It doesn't scream SEC town.
No, it was one of my, probably. I've been to all the SEC towns and stadiums except for Well, actually, I've been to Austin, Texas. I've been to a game in Darrell Royal, but I've been to the stadium. I've walked around. I've been to Austin. Austin's just a great city.
Yeah.
But Missouri, like if I'm ranking them, again, I didn't spend enough time, so I'm giving an incomplete grade. It's like not quite fair, but it was probably way down the list for me.
Yeah.
And for me, I was there during a baseball series last year in May when final exams are going on. But like being there for 3 days, man, I'm just like.
Did they have the turf field, right?
Yes, they have turf, right?
Yeah,
I think they
turf.
Yeah, they have turf.
Because I remember last year it rained.
Yeah.
Or something like that. They had like a monsoon that came through or something like that when y'all were out there.
It's just like you brought up A&M.
Yeah.
A&M I've been to, God, I'm going back again this year. Like I've probably been about 3 or 4 times now. Definitely an SEC college town. Like it's a good time. Now they're a little weird over there with their yell leaders and the midnight yell and all that, but those folks, they are definitely SEC at the core, so I can't say the same about Missouri.
A&M it is a different place.
Oh,
I'm sure it is.
It's a different world in a lot of respects.
It was so strange because I was walking around with a lot of Gamecock people just throughout the weekend and even during the game. I went in. I'm probably getting the year wrong, so it would have been, I guess, 2018. And Carolina narrowly lost. I think they lost by a touchdown in that game, 1-score game anyway. And like the A&M fans are like, "Thank you for coming." Like they walk.
They're nice people.
It was very interesting, and hang out at the Kick and Chicken. They call it the Chicken. You been there, Jack?
Kick and Chicken.
You probably went there.
No,
you go this year. Go this year.
The Kick and is it like what is it like a bar?
With chicken.
Well, yeah, I would assume with chicken.
Fried chicken bar.
Hold on.
It's a good spot.
Yeah, I think when we were there in 23, I think Cloninger, myself, and a few other beat guys. I think we did. Yeah,
that's a Cloninger. Yeah, I think he actually recommended it.
That's that. Yeah, so we did go there 2 years ago then, but
he could probably write the TripAdvisor book of the SEC
man.
at this point.
He knows all of them,
man. But A&M is one of the best trips in the SEC, I would say. It's a good time out there.
So Missouri is the only team in action coming up tonight. Yeah, they'll take on Central Arkansas. There's no line on this game. They're expecting to win it pretty handily, but I'm intrigued. I'm going to check it out a little bit because, again, Carolina's going to see him relatively early on in the season. They've not settled on a quarterback yet. Bo Pribula transferred in from Penn State, and we kind of assumed, okay, well, that means he's probably going to be your starter. Well, the plan going into tonight's game is to play him and Sam Horn kind of evenly throughout the game. Now, again, it's Central Arkansas. It'd be different if they were playing a Power 4 opponent, but I do think it's interesting that Pribula's not taking the job by the horns because essentially Sam Horn was like quarterback number 3 last year behind Brady Cook, Drew Pine, and then Sam Horn. So I do think this battle is intriguing and something they're obviously going to have to figure out before they get into SEC play coming up in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's definitely they're one of those SEC teams that, you know, South Carolina's got their quarterback figured out. You know, South Carolina's kind of in a league of its own with the quarterback situation, having a potential Heisman quarterback. You can't say the same thing at all about Missouri. Like Missouri, Sam Horn he's been at Missouri this will be his 3rd year there now. He's only thrown 8 career passes. So, I mean, that's not a lot. And Bo Pribula did not play a lot at Penn State last year. And obviously, as we all know, he wanted to stay for the college football playoff run, but had to transfer with the way the timeline set, unfortunately. So he's here at Missouri now, and I don't know who would win this job, honestly. I just don't know enough about either quarterback just because they haven't played much at all. But it's going to be interesting to see. And I don't think you can really judge everything based off of this game specifically against Central Arkansas, but Kansas next week.
Sure.
I feel like you're probably going to have to figure out your quarterback situation by then, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and that's what. By the way, I'm looking at their schedule, and you know how ESPN has the tickets as low as thing.
Yeah.
Why is Missouri Kansas a hot ticket? Tickets as low as $213. That's got to be a glitch.
Well, I mean,
but it's the rivalry.
It's the old school rivalry that's reigniting.
Yeah. Isn't that more like basketball though, a little bit?
Yeah, in the late 2000s, they had some good football games when Kansas mattered.
Yeah. $213 though to get in. I don't know. Yes, I know they have a rivalry.
It's at Como, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It's at home for Missouri. I don't know, weird. But anyway, Eli Drinkwitz has said his plan at least is to pick a quarterback next week. So this really seems like an audition, you know, and just from what I've heard, I'm no Missouri insider. I do think Pribula has probably the greater upside, and the thought is that he's more likely to win it, but they got to go play. That's on paper.
Yep.
They got not just on, it's based on what's happened in practice, but they got to go play tonight. So in his opportunities, if Sam Horn looks better, then you got a reassessment. So that will be interesting because, look, they've been, frankly, spoiled by Brady Cook.
Yep.
Eli Drinkwitz very strongly at times kind of admonished the fan base for, this guy's pretty good. Ask a South Carolina fan. They'll tell you.
No kidding.
And they've been kind of spoiled by that. So, man, if you go into the year with questions at quarterback, that's not always a great feeling. So it'll be interesting. Central Arkansas, probably they're going to look pretty good. That's different than going and playing Kansas or South Carolina or Bama or A&M throughout the course of the year. But seems like kind of an audition tonight for those guys.
Yeah, of course, they're losing Theo Weiss. They're losing Luther Burden III. One of the more underrated transfer pickups, though, is Ahmad Hardy, the 1,000-yard back out of ULM that nobody's really talking about this offseason. They have a good track record of pulling these running backs kind of out of nowhere, have a lot of success with them. Unfortunately, a lot of those coming against South Carolina as well. And I'm intrigued to see him tonight, too, and just see how good he looks for his first time in a Missouri uniform.
Well, both of their backs last year, I think
it was 2.
One or both. Yeah. They're both transfers,
Yeah,
right?
they're both from the Sun Belt. One, Nate Noel, and then I forget the other guy's name.
The guy from Georgia State.
Yeah, they were one Georgia State, one was from App State, and Nate Noel had a great game against Carolina last year.
I think he had the season high in rushing yards. I think he went for over 150 in that game. And before that, they had the Division 2 or 3 transfer from Truman State, who was Cody Schrader, who was an excellent player. They do a really good job, administering their run game, and so I would imagine they're building a lot of their plan around that. But yeah, gotta figure out quarterback. I don't think we'll get an answer probably on who their guy's going to end up being. Could it change throughout the year? Maybe. Central Arkansas, no disrespect intended for them.
Yeah,
not the greatest measure of competition to open the year.
Are you disrespecting? I think they're the Bears.
Are they?
I think I gotta click on the link.
You remember when Missouri?
They're the Bears.
They would always open the season with Southeast Missouri State.
Oh yeah,
and Drew Lock would throw for 900 yards. And 12 touchdowns, and then,
I'll say of all quarterbacks I've seen in person, watching Drew Lock spin the ball was a lot of fun. Like, he was a fun quarterback to watch, even if it was on the opposing side. Dude has an arm.
He did.
Yeah.
It was something to watch.
We'll get into more of some of the games coming up tonight as well as tomorrow as the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating rolls along on your Thursday here on the game.
All right, everyone, another one of our great partners here on the game. We were telling you about them earlier. Michael, Nathan, our friends over at Integrated Media. So, man, honestly, it's kind of confusing nowadays with all the streaming services. What do I need to watch the game? How do I watch the game? What's going on? Just give them a call, 803-948-8327. From start to finish, they can be your one-stop shop for any of your technology needs during the college football season. If it's, hey, what's the best service? Like, this is what I want to do. I'm mainly watching sports. Hey, I love watching sports and movie channels. Like, can you help me with the best package? They can do that for you. They can also help make sure that your streaming setup is running in top-notch shape. So if you got dead spots around your home or outside, they'll make sure that your Wi-Fi is running in tip-top shape so that you can stream across multiple devices. They can mount TVs. They can tell you what the very best in technology is. It's integratedmediainc.com or 803-948-8327.
Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head, Jack Belcher, and Chris Clark along with you on your Thursday here on The Game. Again, you'll hear from Coach Beamer one more time tonight on Carolina Calls at 7 o'clock here on The Game in Columbia as well as in Myrtle Beach as he gives his final thoughts ahead of Sunday's matchup against Virginia Tech. But in the meantime, until Sunday, you got a lot of football action taking place. Starting tonight, we talked about Central Arkansas taking on Missouri. You'll have Boise State and USF. You also have maybe the most interesting game of the night in Nebraska and Cincinnati playing in Arrowhead Stadium. And I guess I should pay closer attention to this one more than any other game after what defensive back for the Cornhuskers, Deshaun Singleton, said yesterday.
We're finna make people in wheelchairs stand up. You heard me? Yeah. Get like that. Tell you.
I'll watch. I'll let you know after the game how that goes.
What a line. I'll make people in wheelchairs stand up. Wow.
Thinks they got something special.
Wow.
We'll see.
If he has that sort of magic, then we need it universally because there are a lot of people that I wish we could stand up in wheelchairs.
Well, it's interesting from the Nebraska standpoint because we talk about Matt Rule more than any other 500 coach in college football, I feel like. And he's somebody that the things that he says make a lot of headlines. Again, he drastically, by himself, almost shifted the entire way we look at spring games because he started the narrative of, my player's going to get poached. We have a spring game and all this kind of stuff. And tons of other schools followed suit. And, we know what he did at Baylor and all that kind of stuff. And, he flamed out when he was in the NFL and, did his stuff at Temple. But everybody's looking at him as like, oh, he's going to get Nebraska back to that prominence of where they were decades and decades ago. And we haven't quite seen it yet. And it's like, okay, is this finally the year that things start clicking and Nebraska finally becomes a contender in the Big Ten again? We'll have to see.
I think this could be the year for Nebraska. I'm not saying college football playoff by any means. So, don't get that twisted. But Nebraska has just not been up to snuff, I think, for a long time now. And I think you take, honestly, anywhere between 8 and 9 wins this year at Nebraska. I think it's a pretty good season for them, a step in the right direction. And I definitely think they got the team to do it. I think they have the right quarterback with Dylan Raiola back for his second year now. He's got to take some steps forward. If he can be maybe like a Mahomes-esque player as he looks.
Yeah, I'll say don't start making the comparisons. He'll love that too much.
Yeah, he won't like that. But, it's always tough in the Big Ten. But honestly, I think it really – you look at the toughest games on their schedule, like Michigan comes to Lincoln on September 20th. You go to UCLA in November, but I don't think UCLA is going to be all that good. The toughest game is obviously going to Penn State, and then, you have Iowa coming to town at the end of the year for the rivalry game. So the schedule's very manageable if they can get through non-conference play unscathed, and then you get into Big Ten. It should be pretty smooth sailing potentially.
Yeah, definitely a more manageable schedule this year. And it's interesting, you look at Matt Rule's career trajectory, and you can't say, well, it happened at 2 other schools, it'll happen here. But it is interesting to look back. Temple, his first year, 2-10, then 6-6, and then it's year 3. They go 10-4. He's there one more year. They also win 10 games in year 4. At Baylor, 1-11, year 1. By year 3, they're 11-3. So, what's the common thread? Well, takes over a struggling Nebraska program, has a rough first year. They're 5-7. They go 7-6 in year 2, kind of like he did at Baylor, similar to what he did at year 2 in Temple. And now they're 0-0. Is year 3 kind of the magic year for Matt Rule? And as you said, Jack, they do set up potentially well in terms of not having an absolute murderer's row of a schedule. They've got one of the schedules that I think is more manageable. There's some games in there that if they could win, maybe it'll be an upset, but that could lead to a big year. They've also got some games in there where, if you're going to have a really good year, you can't lose. You can't lose to, I don't know if you put Michigan in that category or not, but you can't go lose at Minnesota.
Northwestern.
You can't lose Northwestern.
Games like that.
You got to go beat UCLA on the road to make those things happen. So, I think they have built it up to where this could be a better team. Typically, again, Rule has been pretty good in year 3. That's been kind of his trajectory at the other programs has been a steady rise from typically pretty bad to then pretty good in year 3. So I wouldn't rule it out.
Wouldn't rule it out?
Yeah, no. Actually, no pun intended, but since it's there. I could see it.
Like, there's no Indiana on the schedule. There's no Ohio State, 2 playoff teams from last year. And I think and also for Michigan, I mean, they're going to be coming off the, hold on, Oklahoma's week 2, right? So
this is one of the games that Sharon Moore is sitting out of, and that was the conversation back in May when they self-imposed the ban. Is like, well, they don't think they need their head coach to beat Nebraska. He wants to coach against Oklahoma because that's his alma mater, but the weeks 3 and 4 game, I think it's Central Michigan and then Nebraska, are the games that he's voluntarily sitting out.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you gotta go to Lincoln again. That's not going to be an easy place to play with the way. What is their sellout streak over well over almost 400 or if not more games now? I mean,
didn't it end a few years ago? I think the long streak ended, but it started back up.
Yeah,
if it did,
well,
because they were bad a couple years ago.
Yeah, I mean, they've been bad for a little bit here, but again, I mean, look, that's a great atmosphere out there in Lincoln. So I think for Michigan, 3:30 game CBS. I mean, that could be a little bit of a trap game. But we also saw Michigan, 2 seasons ago when Jim Harbaugh had to sit out for the Penn State game. Sharon Moore took over and things were fine.
The biggest thing is obviously Dylan Raiola's development from year 1 to year 2. Again, he came in 5-star, guns a-blazing, earned the opportunity to be the starter last year, and he was okay, but he looked like a freshman going through the ups and downs that a freshman quarterback will have in a tough conference like the Big Ten. And he's a confident kid. You listen to him talk and listen to him, or see him dress himself up like Patrick Mahomes, which, by the way, he's got to be thrilled to be playing in Arrowhead tonight, the home of Patrick Mahomes. That's going to take that to the next level. But how much better can he get from year 1 to year 2, I think, is really going to decide how far this Nebraska team can go.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I totally agree with you with the whole Mahomes. I think Mahomes runs around the field before the game trying to pump people up.
Well, he already does the Mahomes entrance.
But he's going to
He's going to do it in Arrowhead.
He's going to do it in Arrowhead, which is the craziest thing. You look at his numbers last year. He threw for almost 3,000 yards, which, honestly, not too bad. It's the touchdown-interception ratio where it's like you have 13 touchdowns. 11 picks is way too much for that minimal of touchdowns. You really got to, pick it up this year, I think, because, they put, I don't know how much into him, but a lot of stock for sure to where it's like, hey, you need this guy to be. If Nebraska's going to go far this year, a lot of it does come down to what Dylan Raiola does. And if he has a big year like Nebraska thinks he can, then I think this could be a fun year for the Cornhuskers.
One thing to note, they got Dane Key out of the transfer portal. Now, I know his numbers weren't crazy last year, but he didn't exactly have good quarterback play when he was at Kentucky. That could be a big key to the success of this offense in Nebraska this year.
Yeah, Dane Key, and I'd also go to, Dana Holgerson in his first full year. He obviously took over for Marcus Satterfield, kind of at the midway point, not really the midway point, the final 4 games. Nebraska went 2-2 during that stretch, but with a full off season and a full season of Dana Holgerson, certainly he's an offensive mind who's done some things in his career. Will that take them to the next step? That's been a problem for them in the first couple years in the Matt Rule era, is being consistent on offense. They have a guy in Raiola who's really talented. They've added some pieces. They're clearly pretty confident on defense. I don't know how that'll turn out, but
we'll see. We'll be watching Deshaun Singleton specifically tonight to see how well he plays.
Yes.
You guys want to hear how brutal we talk about Nebraska needing to do well this year with the schedule they have. You really want to hear real quick how tough this Big Ten schedule is next year?
Sure.
At Illinois, at Iowa, at Michigan State, Indiana at home, Maryland at home, Ohio State at home, Washington at home. Go to Oregon, go to Rutgers. So,
yeah, that's tough.
It's going to be tough.
We'll see.
See about this year.
Year 3 of the Rule era gets kicked off tonight, 9 o'clock on ESPN. That game will follow Boise State and USF, which starts at 5:30. We'll take a quick detour away from football because Dawn Staley said something interesting yesterday about that interview she had with the New York Knicks a few months back. We'll let you hear that as the Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating, rolls along here on The Game.
Everyone knows that AAA Heating and Air has the best HVAC replacement options in the Midlands with their guaranteed financing, no payments or interest for 12 months, and a 15-year parts and labor warranty. They're hard to beat when you need a new system. And let's be honest, there's probably going to come a point where your heating's going to be too high, your air conditioning's just not working. But maybe here's the question. But what did you know? They also have great deals for repairs. That's right. If your system is broken and you're strapped for cash, AAA Heating and Air can help. They'll get your repairs done with payment options for up to 12 months and no credit check required. So if you're the homeowner here, all you need is a valid bank account. That's it. That's all you need. So don't wait. Call AAA Heating and Air today and get your comfort back on track. AAA Heating and Air. Comfort you can trust.
Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. It's all right, Chris Clark and Jack Felcher along with you here on your Thursday. Again, plenty more football conversation to come, but an interesting comment made yesterday on a podcast by Dawn Staley in reference to when she interviewed for the New York Knicks job over the summer after their season came to an end and they fired their head coach. She was asked, hey, about that job, would you have taken it if they offered it to you? And here's what Coach Staley had to say.
When I interviewed for the Knicks. I did. It was the same interview that everybody else that was in their candidate pool. Same thing. Went in. It was like hours in the interview. I thought I did pretty well. I was well prepared for the interview. Right? If the Knicks would have offered me the job, I would have had to do it. Okay? Not just for me, it's for women, for just to break open that I would have to, and it's the New York Knicks. And I'm from Philly, but it's the freaking New York Knicks. And I did say that in the interview. I actually said it. Y'all don't have to censor it out.
You can say it. We got creative control of it. We can bleep you out.
So, again, Dawn Staley yesterday talking about that Knicks job, and it's interesting to hear it directly from her because I think we had an idea that, if the Knicks offered her the job, that would be very hard to turn down. But as she just put it right there, I would have to take it. That's almost an impossible thing to turn down in her scenario there, where, again, she would be quite literally blazing a trail as the first female head coach in NBA history. And I do wonder now that she said this, does she become more of a sought-after commodity in upcoming coaching searches? Like, hey, we know if we offer her the job, she will take it because it would be so monumental and so trailblazing.
Well, keep in mind also, she did say she wouldn't take, any NBA head coaching job.
Right.
It would have to be the right, the Knicks, that's a pretty cool gig to get. You're talking about, one of the most famous teams in sports playing at, the most famous arena in the world. So there's a lot there that, if she got the job, I mean, who could blame her to take the job with the New York Knicks? And obviously, if it were like the 76ers, she'd be open to it. And again, like you said, trailblazing, it'd be something that it'd be hard to pass up. But the one interesting thing that I don't think was in that clip that she mentioned in the interview, I think she asked the Knicks in her interview, like, you know, the support staff around her, like, are you guys going to, I don't know, I can't remember the right wording, if it was going to be like more inclusive, like bring more people around her. Like, they just weren't open to it apparently. So I think that's part of why she just didn't get the job, but I'm not sure. But I think it's something where obviously, you know, we remember almost a few years ago, Becky Hammon, you know, she was on the Spurs staff, and it looked like she was going to be bound to be the next Spurs head coach after Greg Popovich retired. But obviously Pop stayed probably a bit too long, and it got to a point where she had to take the job with the Aces in the WNBA. I mean, too good to pass up, right? So I don't know if Dawn would be the first coach, but I mean, if it happens, it probably would be.
Yeah, if you're looking at who could it be, like, she's probably on the short list, right? Because of her resume, who she is, what she's done. And I think, Jack, to go back to what you were saying, yeah, some more context there. I mean, she was asking questions about, hey, how are y'all going to handle, you know, you're going to be constantly getting questions about why did you hire Dawn Staley? Why did you hire a female for this position? You know, kind of the ensuing media, especially in New York, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you know, the media up there, I don't want to, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Like, they ask a lot of questions.
They're tough.
Right? Like,
it's known as the toughest media market for a reason.
You know, and so, and that would go, like, you get a lot of questions no matter who you hire up there. And so she says, hey, I might have, like, shot myself in the foot, like, asking those tough questions. But that's good, right? That helps you figure out if it's the right fit. If you're going to take a job, you want it to be the right job also. So it's interesting. Lisa Boyer, who is on Dawn's staff here at South Carolina, was actually the first assistant female NBA coach in 2001 with the Cleveland Cavs. So she was a trailblazer in that regard. Dawn Staley, in her contract here at South Carolina, has, hey, you owe a buyout if you left for, you know, whatever other job, except for if you took a pro job in the, I think it might say WNBA, but she's not even interested in that. NBA is another one.
Yeah.
And we've always kind of thought, if Dawn ever were to leave, aside from just walking away from the game totally to go take another coaching job, it's very likely not going to be at just some other school.
Sure.
It's going to be for one of these opportunities, because she's been a trailblazer throughout her career. She's been a trailblazer, and getting to be, you know, maybe the first female NBA head coach would certainly, you know, qualify there. So I don't know. Will it happen one day? Maybe so.
And again, you know, with the terms of the contract and all that kind of stuff, we knew that was always a possibility. But hear her specifically say, yeah, I would have taken it, you know, if the circumstances were right. I think it makes it that much more real. I mean, again, I'm not saying, oh, she's going to leave after this year or something like that, but that just kind of further opens you up, like saying, okay, these are things that could be possible in the next handful of years for that right opportunity, and another big name organization comes along and wants her to really be their head coach. It could happen.
I think the NBA just has to be ready for it, right? Because again, there's going to be a media circus that comes with that sort of job. But also, like, I mean, look, the NBA obviously, and all these other sports leagues are trying to be more inclusive now and stuff. I think this would be a real big step in that right direction of getting to that point where it's not, you know, it's not uncommon. It's something that is normal.
Well, for the time being, she's still South Carolina's coach, and we are thankful for that. And we're still a little ways away from basketball season getting rolling, but expecting another strong year for Dawn Staley and her crew. Coming up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. 3 days to kick off trivia, as well as the latest from what Beamer said yesterday talking to the media as your Thursday rolls along here on the game.
All right, everyone, as we close out the show, we're presented on Tuesdays and Thursdays, as always, by our folks over at Krentz Cooling and Heating since 1983. local, reliable, and family-owned service, residential and commercial HVAC, air conditioning, heating. They can do maintenance. They can do installations. They can do repairs. They have financing available if you need it. So go check them out. KrantzCooling.com. That's Krantz, cooling with a K. KrantzCooling.com. You can text them directly from their website. You can schedule an appointment. They can come check out what you got going on, or you can give them a call, 803-672-3224. I know Justin Krantz, the GM there personally. I have them come take care of everything that I need at my home with our HVAC, and I send them to everyone that I know, families, businesses all around the Midlands. They can help you out. Again, KrantzCooling.com or 803-672-3224. That's KrantzCooling.com. Krantz Cooling and Heating since 1983.
$11 o'clock on your Thursday morning. Welcome in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, Chris Clark, Wes Mitchell along with you here. Of course, 3 days away from South Carolina and Virginia Tech getting things rolling on Sunday. We are 76 hours, 9 minutes, and 50 seconds away from kickoff in Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Not that anyone's counting.
Not that anyone's counting. Well, we are because we have the countdown clock, but you know what I mean. It's getting close, guys. And today, with week 1 starting proper, where Wes Mitchell will finally start paying attention to the games, then we're off and rolling until Sunday. Any thoughts on that, Wes?
Well, I mean, I'm pumped. I think that let me just say this, guys. I tried on the Farmageddon last week. I did watch from the hospital. It was football. It was football. It was a solid appetizer. It was still not. You know what I'm looking forward to, almost as much as the games, is when the first college game day theme of the new year hits.
Yep.
When they have the overhead cam sort of pan across the crowd and you see the game day crowd out there. There's something about that moment where you're just like, it's almost like, the games are opening your presents on Christmas, but hearing the game day theme for the first time of a new year is when you wake up and you realize, oh, it's Christmas. It's here. I've made it.
Yep.
And it's going to be exciting. It's going to be emotional for a lot of us, I think, because, I'm sure the Corso tributes are going to be heavy. And so that part's going to be probably a little bit tough, man. But it's all the reasons why we love college ball. It makes us feel things. So I'm pumped.
I went back and watched the Not So Fast My Friend again last night. Those last 6 to 8 minutes. It's heavy, man. Saturday morning, 11:59, that final headgear, it's gonna hit us all pretty hard.
Did you look like Herbie?
I wasn't that, but it's something you get choked up watching for sure.
That one, the Herbie one will get you, like watching Herbie and then watching Corso react to Herbie. Man, yeah, I'm so ready for it for so many reasons.
Yep, and then we'll be off and running for Texas, Ohio State, and everything else on that Saturday. And it's cool that Carolina plays on Sunday because we get to fully take in week 1 of Saturday without, hey, we got to go to the stadium, we go to this, go to that. Getting ready for the Carolina game. So excited for all that and hopefully get the season rolling off right with a victory on Sunday. We are still counting down our days to kick off, though. 3 days left, and we are in a neck-and-neck fight in the trivia question showdown, which we still don't have a prize for this thing. Maybe I should come up with one before tomorrow. But Chris, you and Wes are tied 26 all with only, I guess, I have a bonus today and tomorrow. So I guess 3 total questions, 1.5 each day, I guess is the way I should phrase that.
Okay.
So it's coming down to the wire. You guys, any insight on who 3 days into a kickoff is?
Well, I'm kind of thinking either maybe a Corey Boyd or a Javon Kinlaw. Those are the ones I thought of.
Wes, any guesses?
I mean, I thought you were going to go Jarvis Giles maybe.
Oh, my goodness.
Just like deep cut.
I did go Javon Kinlaw.
Okay.
Anybody study for Javon Kinlaw?
Not really. No.
After all this time, still no study.
I looked a little bit more into Corey Boyd. I felt like there was more like trivia / statistics potential. So of course you went the other way.
I did.
I'm just going to take whatever I think, and then I'm going to do the opposite. That'll be my strategy for the last day.
I'll go ahead and tell you tomorrow is a Sterling Sharp question because
I figured.
How could it not be?
Yeah.
And then Chris and I discussed this in the last hour because we will not have a 1 day to kick off because that'll be Saturday. We will have an additional question tomorrow involving the number 1 since we won't get to do that this weekend. So prepare accordingly.
That's fair.
So
I think we have to, right?
Yes, we do.
We have to do a 1, and it's tight. Like this
is.
It could be a massive number 1 question, right?
Yeah, it could be. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. But today, 3 days until kickoff, we are looking at Javon Kinlaw. Today's question: he blocked 3 kicks in his South Carolina career. Can you tell me what 3 games those were in?
No. Absolutely not.
Wes?
Tyler. Oh, my God. Is there any partial credit here or no?
Depending on what you give me, I might assign half a point.
Do you want just the teams, or you want the team and the year?
You know what? If you can give me at least the teams, I'll count that. If you can give me the year, that's great, but I won't hold the year against you.
Oh, my God.
I will say it was one each season. So in 3 years, he blocked at least one kick. He blocked one kick every year.
Okay.
Just to let you know, I've got mine in my head that I'm not confident in. But I'm not going to change them.
Give me Georgia, Florida, and Vandy.
All right. Chris, what's your guess?
I actually have two of those. I'm going Vandy. I feel like it's like if anything bad happened, like if they did something good, like Vanderbilt's on the list. It's so funny. Vanderbilt, Georgia, and I'm going Clemson.
Unfortunately, none of those 6 answers are correct.
What? Wow.
There's no way, dude. I can see him in my head blocking field goals against all those teams.
So in 2017, he had a block against Missouri. 2018 against UT Chattanooga. And then 2019 in the opener against North Carolina.
Yikes.
Those are his 3 blocks.
0 points. Not even a third, not even a half.
Have mercy on your soul.
Yes, exactly.
There is a bonus option for half a point here.
Yeah.
Can you tell me the 3 NFL rosters that he's been on?
I should really know this.
Niners, Jets, Redskins, or Commanders.
That is correct.
There you go. Uh-oh.
So now West takes a half-point lead as we head into the final day.
Okay.
So study up on your Sterling Sharp tomorrow.
Yes, better.
It's coming down to it. So,
I say you don't, and I mean, obviously, I would guess you might go Alshon, but don't give us your number one question. Like, don't even give us a subject.
Don't give you a subject? Okay. Yeah. That's fair. May find a deep cut for number one. We'll see.
Okay.
Got it. But I'm glad this is coming down to the wire. Tomorrow should be fun. Of course, yesterday we heard from Coach Beamer talking in his Tuesday availability that was on Wednesday because this week is all screwed up with the game being on Sunday. He addressed, obviously, the depth chart or lack thereof, said still a lot of position battles still open at this point in time. So we're not getting any more insight into who's starting where or anything like that, though we have a pretty good idea. And Chris, I know you put out the Gamecock Central depth chart, which I'm hoping he won't be upset about, where, again, it kind of reinforces what we've talked about a lot this offseason of most of these spots are kind of easy to figure out based on experience, what guys have done in camp and spring and all that kind of stuff. It's just a few spots here and there that may have a few oars.
Yeah, Beamer said yesterday, I mean, Wes, you had your contest before we found out we would not, in fact, be getting a depth chart about how many oars would be on the depth chart. And Beamer said, I mean, what was the phrase he used? He said a whole bunch, basically. It's like if we would have given you a depth chart, it would have had a ton of, paraphrasing, oars on there. So, I had some on mine. It's imperfect, too, because when you think about a depth chart, a lot of times, especially at a position like the offensive line or even, say, in the secondary, it's going to have, okay, here's the starter, here's the number 2, and then you've got oars in there that complicate things. In reality, a lot of times, if you're thinking about it more practically, it's just who's the next guy up, So if you think about nickel, for instance, okay, if it's not Jalen Kilgore, who's the starter there, maybe, a Jalewis Solomon is listed as the backup, but in reality, what are they probably going to do? Probably move Brandon Cisse to nickel, and then put Vakari Swain in that other corner spot opposite Judge Collier. Same thing on the offensive line. You've got a guy who maybe he's not listed on a depth chart as the backup at a particular spot, but he's the 6th guy, and so he's going in that instance. So I think we've got a lot of spots on this depth chart that we're still very much, I mean, Beamer said this yesterday, hey, we have some position battles that are going down to this final week. You could imagine kicker is probably one of those. Where they're going to go in this week. Shane Beamer said, hey, I would have liked for us still to be more consistent, to have place kicked a little better. You got to imagine that one's going down to the wire. One of the guard spots at least. probably going down to the wire between at least a couple of guys in those instances. How are they going to handle, running back as far as who trots out there first? I think still a lot of questions here, which, makes it difficult to kind of figure out, hey, what will this depth chart maybe look like?
Yeah, and guys, you remember certain spots last year, even spots that were like they played very well, like take linebacker, for example. They kind of had 3 co-starters, and at the beginning they sort of had 4 co-starters before Kamara transferred out. And so, I could see a situation. We know that J.R. Johnson's going to play. We know Sean Murphy's going to play. We know Justin Okoronkwo is going to play. Maybe those 3 are kind of co-starters. What is Jaron Willis's role in there? How much does he play? What does that rotation look like? At defensive tackle, I think we sort of know what the trio is. You don't necessarily know which 2 will be out there, for the first play of the game. How exactly are those reps split? Who's the 4th defensive tackle? Is it Devontae Miles? I know there's been some buzz around him. I think some of these things you don't even – some of these positions you don't even necessarily have to, decide, and maybe aren't even truly decided throughout the year. Now, I think what I believe is still, the guard spots are a little bit interchangeable. I believe we're still looking at left guard. But just to be completely safe, we think Trovon Ball, we're pretty sure he's going to be a starter at 1 guard spot. I think that's going to be the way they've done it in the past. I think that's going to be right guard. We'll see there, though. But I expect Ball to be a starter at guard. Who is that other starter? Is it the freshman Shed Surratt? Is it the transfer Nick Sharp? Is it the transfer RJ Newsome? He has had some buzz here as of late after I thought kind of honestly having a little bit of a quiet spring. So, is he in that mix there? What does that look like? And do we see one of the transfers start, but then Shed play at that position? And, I think they prefer, all things being equal, to roll, hey, here are our 5 offensive linemen. For the most part, let's roll them out there and let them just gel together. But we have seen before. We saw it last year a little bit at right tackle. Henry got banged up, but then even after he came back and was healthy, they kind of rotated at right tackle a little bit. So I don't think they like to make wholesale changes within a game at that offensive line spot, but I do think they're willing to play a guy and give him a chance. My current guess, it could obviously change, is we see maybe one of the older guys get the start at that extra guard spot. But I think Surratt is going to be rotated in. I think he is going to play at some point early this season, probably on Sunday.
We'll get back into what Coach Beamer had to say yesterday, including talking about the kicking and where that is as of right now, as Chris alluded to a moment ago, as the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs rolls along here on your Thursday on The Game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West, Chris, along with you on your Thursday here on the game. Carolina calls tonight at 7 o'clock here on the game in Columbia, as well as Myrtle Beach. Here from Coach Beamer ahead of Sunday's matchup against Virginia Tech. But we also heard from him yesterday talking to the media in his usual weekday availability, and Chris alluded to it a moment ago. He had some interesting comments when he was talking about the kicking competition, as we are, again, only 3 days away from the season starting. Here is what Coach Beamer had to say yesterday.
I'm a lot closer than what I was on August 1st when we started practice. Just to be completely honest, I wish we had kicked a little better today and Monday, Sunday, whatever day it was, Sunday in the football world, Monday in the real world. Not that we were bad, but, you know, being a perfectionist, you want to hit everything and confident in those guys as we get into Sunday, without a doubt. But we've come a long way. They've all improved. I like where we are on special teams, not just punters, kickers, snappers, but coverage units, return units, all that. It's a big point of emphasis for us, and we need to be really good at it on Sunday. And we've got quality, talented guys, don't get me wrong, more than one at each position. When I talk about the punter and the kicker and the kickoff person as well, just want to see more and more consistency all the time from those guys, and confident that we will.
So I hear that, again, less than a week out from the game starting, and it doesn't instill a ton of confidence in me, if we're being honest. And, you know, you go back to last year when it came down to the wire with, Alex Herrera and the guys that were battling for the kicking spot. Last year, we heard something kind of similar where Beamer was not completely sold on somebody going into game number one. And again, Herrera did okay, but he had his misses and stuff like that throughout the season that we've talked about plenty this offseason. So you're kind of in the similar boat once again of not really having this certainty of exactly what the kicking is going to look like going into the first game for the second year in a row.
I think the concern here is that is this uncertainty going to end up being more like the offensive tackle situation going into the 2023 season? Or is it going to end up being more like a close battle that we saw with the kicker battle between Herrera and Mitch Jeter going into 2022? Now, I can give an optimistic and a pessimistic argument, I think, for both of those. If you're being a little pessimistic, you're going off what you've heard, you're going off of what Shane Beamer's saying, and you're thinking, all right, well, if the issue in practice among everybody has been consistency, it's kind of hard to imagine you get into a game scenario and it gets better. If you're being a little more optimistic, you're thinking, all right, you know, Mitch Jeter and Alex Herrera in that previous kicking battle a few years ago were charting pretty similar in practice. They weren't charting as well as Parker White the previous year. And then Jeter wins the job and goes out and hits every field goal that season, right? So, you know, I don't know if they have somebody right now this year who's ready to be as good as Mitch Jeter was, you know. I think his performance that year probably surprised everybody. I mean, who could go predict, I think our kicker will go out and make every single field goal this year. That's a high bar to clear, and yet that's what he did. So, look, I do think, is it exactly what Beamer said in that they feel a little better? Yeah, sure. I don't think that's maybe just coach speak. But should we take it at face value that it's still a concern? I certainly think so. And look, even if they were, if they felt really good about it based on what they've seen in practice, we are still going to go into that game with the first field goal that somebody kicks being the first one that they've kicked in a game. And so you never really know what you're getting from that standpoint.
Yeah, and I mean, we've said this 100 times at this point, guys. They could hit all their kicks now. Really, that doesn't mean you will or won't make them in games. I mean, there's just going out there. I mean, you're going to be in an NFL stadium, you know, tens of thousands of people around you, ESPN cameras. It's just a different heart rate at that point. You've got a different snapper. You've got a new holder. Everybody always blames the kicker, but all those things matter in terms of the timing as well. And here's the thing. We got to see how it actually plays out, right? Like, if whoever the kicker is, and they haven't said, I've heard some William Joyce buzz as of late. I don't think that means it's 100% him. but there has been buzz that he could be the first guy up. And let's say it is. If he goes out there and attempts and makes his first kick, maybe the confidence goes up. Maybe you're feeling good about it. Maybe that entire operation starts to get a little bit more confidence, and you maybe breathe a little bit. If you go out there early on, you attempt and you miss, you're the same guy, you're the same player, you're the same sort of mental toughness, but how it actually goes can affect all those things moving forward. So how does Shane Beamer manage the fourth down decisions? You have arguably at least one of the best playmakers in the country at quarterback. If it's 4th and 2 and I'm at the 30-yard line, I mean, I'm just keeping the offense on the field. You know what I'm saying? Now in a perfect world, don't you guys think in a perfect world, not that you ever want to stall out, you want all touchdowns. If you're stalling out early in this game and it's not on like the 30, 35-yard line where you're just going to say, hey, we're going for it, don't you kind of hope it's about the 20-yard line in the middle of the field? Like, there's not much distance to this kick. Let's roll our guy out there and let him make one and take a deep breath and be like, dude, you've got this.
Yeah.
So that first kick for some guys can affect the rest. I mean, I don't know if it affects the rest of the season, but it could. I mean, it's just such a mental position, guys.
And there's levels to this for, again, a kicker that's quite literally never done it in a game before, regardless of who this is going to be. There's making your first kick just overall. There's doing it. You're going to be a neutral site venue, but there's going to be a lot of Gamecock fans there, maybe even more than Hokie fans. But then there's the level of, okay, you're going to be going on the road to Missouri and LSU and Ole Miss and all these places that are going to be challenging with a crowd that's going to be jeering you the entire time. That's kind of the next level after that is, okay, you're making kicks, now do it in tougher situations, maybe with the game on the line and stuff like that. But you have to pass that first test, as y'all were mentioning, of, hey, just go out there and make the thing first, and then we'll get to the next thing in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with your point, Wes, that you have to build that. Shane Beamer typically has been aggressive in situations. Shane Beamer will go out there and early in the game, let's go for 2, early in the game, He has at times a more aggressive mentality than, regardless of who's out there at kicker or what the offense looks like. Instead of kicking a 52-yard field goal, he may be more inclined, if possible, to go for it, etc. But I think you have to bake that into your thought of, okay, if it's 4th and 2, like you said, at the 30-yard line, I can run the football here. I can keep my offense on the field, or I can take my chances with a 47, 48-yard field goal for an unproven guy. And to your point, especially early in the game, hey, we're not sure what we got at kicker. Go out there and hit a 50-yarder on your first one. A little bit tough. So I 100% think that this situation could affect the way that you go out there and basically manage the game.
So we'll see what happens with the kicking situation. Oh, sorry, Wes, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say we keep talking about that Jeter and Herrera example. I got another one for y'all that once again illustrates you just don't know. Chris, do you remember off the top of your head? I will reward you no points if you get this. Who was the starting kicker, real quick, going into the 2017 season?
Oh gosh, I can't come up with his name. I don't know. You tell me.
Alex Wozniak.
That's right.
And
that's right.
He won the job in camp. He was going to be the guy. Everybody was kind of boosting him, like let's build the confidence, build the confidence, build the confidence.
Yep.
He's the guy. He's your starter. Hits one of his first 3 kicks. South Carolina says, well, let's give the next guy a chance. The next guy is none other than Parker White, who goes on to break the school scoring record throughout his career. So even in cases where you're a little bit concerned, and Parker wasn't great his first year statistically, but they also had him attempting those 52 and 53-yard field goals as well. So there are things you can do to help your guy out a little bit. That's what I would expect South Carolina to do.
That's one area we're certainly going to be concerned with going into the weekend. What are other things we might be concerned with game number 1? We'll hit a Make Your Case coming up next as the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs, rolls along on your Thursday here on the Game.
All right, everyone, if you're hungry here at lunchtime on the game, check out our friends over at Firehouse Subs. That's firehousesubs.com, or you can download the Firehouse Subs apps. We were there just this week, downtown, Main Street, USC location, had the spread. It was outstanding. Check out the new smoking barbecue triple stack in either the classic or the Carolina Gold barbecue sauces here, and it's back for a limited time only, but they've also got all of your Firehouse Subs favorites, whether it's the brisket ab bacon for Wes, turkey bacon ranch. They got the hot sauce bar available in the store. So even if you use the Rapid Rescue to go, you can go check out the hot sauce bar, put some hot sauce on your sub, take it home. Lunch, dinner, and catering. Remember that for the college football season. They've got catering options for you, too, as well. Register for a free account on firehousesubs.com or the app. Earn some rewards towards future purchases. 17 locations all around the Midlands.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West, Chris with you on your Thursday here on the game. Only 75 hours, 35 minutes, and 52 seconds away from kickoff between South Carolina and Virginia Tech. You can listen to all of our game day coverage starting at 10 o'clock Sunday morning with Tailgate Show with myself and Terry Ford at O'Hara's out in Lexington. And then, of course, network coverage kicks in at 12 o'clock for the 3 o'clock kick out there in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. As we're looking ahead to game number 1, we talked about kicking there in the last segment in terms of what Beamer had to say about it yesterday, and that's an area that is of great concern going into this first game, as are a lot of things with a team that has so many unknowns. So we will bring back one of our favorite games, that being Make Your Case. So today's edition of Make Your Case, going into game number 1, what player, fundamental, or situation concerns you most for South Carolina coming up on Sunday?
Oh. Read that. What player, situation, or what?
Or fundamental. So anything, within the realm of anything that concerns you the most.
The fundamental would, for instance, be run defense.
Run defense,
whatever.
yeah, sure. Well, whatever way you want to go with it, where is your heightened list of concern and what could go wrong on Sunday?
For me, I've still got to go back to the defensive line, which let me unpack it. You might say, well, Chris, Dylan Stewart plays on the defensive line. I understand that. He's really, really good, but other teams know about that as well. Last year, you had a veteran, talented, leadership-laden, experienced defensive tackle room with some depth. And then, of course, you also had Kyle Kennard, who won the Nagurski on the other side of Dylan Stewart. And aside from Dylan, you don't have those guys this year. You've got guys that have transferred in. You've got guys who have been more of, some of them have played a good bit of football over their career, but they've been more role players. And so for me, that I think is the key. I think this team's going to be different in that this team will be more driven by offense, whereas last year they were more driven by their defense. The offense obviously came along throughout the course of last year. They made some plays that helped them win games. This team I look at a little bit in reverse. So I do think you can't look, even if you think the offense for South Carolina is going to be a lot better, you can't be poor on defense. And I'm not projecting them to be poor, but if they have problems up front, that's a recipe to hurt you because there's strengths in their secondary. But if you can't get an adequate pass rush, that affects your secondary. You're not going to be able to stop the run as well. So I just think, specifically with defensive tackles, specifically with some of the depth concerns in the edge room with some of the injuries, the guys that would have helped you, I go to the defensive front because that's going to affect the linebackers being able to run free, the secondary, and really the whole enchilada on defense. So that's still it for me.
Okay. Wes?
Yeah, I mean, it has always been defensive tackle, too, for me, like specifically the interior of the defensive line. I know we just talked about the kicker spot, but let me go back to it, man. I mean, this thing is more competitive than ever. Like, Chris has been talking about margin for error as like his favorite phrase for the last decade, but it is only getting tighter. And, I think there's more teams than ever in that middle tier of the SEC, or what people would say is the middle tier on paper. There's more teams than ever there that have a chance this year to take that step forward and steal a spot in that upper tier where people right now, I think, are kind of putting maybe Texas, Georgia, LSU, Alabama, I guess. But so much talent kind of in that next group. And South Carolina's right there as a team you can make a case for. Point I'm getting at, how many of these games will be super, super tight? Like, how many of these games will be so close that they do come down to the kicking game? And, you can avoid that, like I talked about earlier, for as long as you can. Like, you can go for it on fourth down. You can say, hey, we're just going to be aggressive, keep the offense on the field. But as we saw last year, guys, it is ultimately unavoidable. Like, you are going to have situations where you're kicking to tie or kicking to win, or even the case, Chris brings it up all the time, the kick at Clemson that puts you in a situation where you're driving the later drive, the ensuing drive, you're driving to win instead of driving to tie. So those things are unavoidable. Like, there are going to be spots where you have to kick. Can South Carolina handle those spots? I do believe still it is just it's maybe even past defensive tackle for me in terms of the biggest concern. And the one thing that nobody wants to talk about, too, guys, that is completely out of your control, or I'll say mostly out of your control, you have to keep Sellers and Stewart healthy. If you have two absolutely dynamic guys that change your program, that change your team, you have to find a way to keep them on the field. So I say you have no hand in that. For the most part, you don't. Injuries can just be freak accidents. But how much are you willing to let Superman be Superman? We're all going to get frustrated when they maybe sort of say, hey, let's just get the ball out to the receiver here. You've got to walk that line, guys, between letting him just go be himself but not taking such a beating.
There's a lot of different ways you can go with this, and you guys came up with some good options there. I wanted to go fundamentally because I look at turnovers, and this was obviously an issue for the team last year. It's been something that's plagued the team. I'm talking about offensively here. It's plagued the team a lot in the Beamer era, and a lot of last year revolved around Sellers and not, carrying the ball high and tight and it, being loose and getting knocked out and, basically lost half the fumbles that he put on the ground, and including some in some pretty key situations as the season went along last year. And we obviously know one of the big points of emphasis this offseason was him getting better in that regard, and I have no doubt that Mike Shula and Shane Beamer and everybody else that's worked with him is drilled into his head, doing the technical and fundamental things the right way to prevent those kind of things from happening. But there's a difference between doing it in the practice and scrimmage and actually doing it in a game. And it's kind of one of those things that I need to see to really say, okay, now it's different. Now I'm not as worried about the turnovers, and it's not going to be as consistent of an issue. And I look back at week 0 last week, and yes, they were playing in the rain, but watching, Iowa State and Kansas State just lose handle of the ball early in the game and just have a lot of clunkiness because, again, we talk about it. There's no preseason in college football. You go right in to playing game number 1, so you're prone to make a lot of mistakes. And, again, I don't doubt they've worked really hard on cleaning up the turnover issues, but if you're going to have those issues rear their ugly head in game number 1, maybe in the first half, as you're still getting, used to getting back in the flow of things, that's where those things can kind of happen. And I do look at this game on paper and say I think South Carolina is a better team than Virginia Tech. But if you're giving them short fields, if you're giving them free possessions, then that's how they can beat you. And that's something that does concern me going in until we get into the game and say, okay, things look a whole lot better. Now I'm not as worried about it anymore. That's going to be kind of at the top of my mind of concerns ahead of Sunday.
I think that's very fair. Cutting down on the turnovers. There's a year in the past where Shane Beamer identified, hey, we've had too many interceptions. We got to do better. And the next year they did. Fumbles is, I think, one you can point out. And Sellers was not alone in that. They had some other big fumbles throughout the course of the year. But if you're looking for a hole in his game, especially in the early part, you think about the ODU game, you think about Kentucky, you think about Bama. Some of those games early in the first half of the season, that it was an issue. They were actually fortunate not to lose a lot more of those fumbles that happened early in the course of the year. So I do think you make a good point, Tyler. You have to actually do it in a game, but I do think it's something they're a lot more keyed into. I think it's something that Sellers improved on throughout the course of last year, too. So if you're looking for a reason to think it could be better, I think, you can not even talk yourself into it, but I think there's good reason to think it will be better.
Yeah, like Chris said, it wasn't all Sellers, but guys, you South Carolina lost 4 games last year, and the LSU game, turnovers let them get back into the game. The Alabama game, after Alabama had its own turnover in the end zone, South Carolina is driving to take that game over, and you have the kind of little botched zone read handoff with Rocket, I think, and Sellers. And then in the bowl game, you had, I believe, a Jawarn Howell fumble when it felt like South Carolina kind of was finding some momentum on offense. Even the Clemson game is probably closer than it could have been if South Carolina's not putting the ball on the turf. So, I agree with Tyler. It definitely was a massive – it changed your season, really, in a lot of ways last year.
Yep. So, some critical things to look ahead to of game number 1. We'll come back, wrap up the hour, hear more of what Coach Beamer had to say yesterday, talking to the media ahead of the Virginia Tech game as the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs rolls along on your Thursday on the game.
I see what I got on. I got that Nike on, but Nike's been, it's been one of the favorite brands for a lot of people. So that's just going to bring a lot of, just a lot of good things to us. Recruits like Nike more than, mostly any other company. So that's just bigger for us, bigger for the university. Glad they got it done. So, we'll see what happens next year with that.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West Coast wrapping up the hour here on your Thursday. That was Nick Harper yesterday and his media availability. And, of course, the news of the Nike deal for South Carolina is about a week old at this point in time. But I did think it was interesting hearing it from a player's perspective, somebody like Harper that is still young, about how much that stuff does really matter. We talked about it last week, but hearing it from somebody like him, somebody that was quite literally wearing a Nike t-shirt when talking to the media yesterday, about how much those kind of things do matter to recruits, 17, 18-year-old kids, when they're determining where they're going to go play in college. And Beamer talked about that yesterday too. How much that could potentially help them down the line. And obviously it's something that, as we talked about at the end of last week, we're all very excited for.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that has been brought up by multiple people, and Beamer talked about it too the other day, where it's come up, even on recruiting visits, where some guys have asked, like, hey, what's the status, like, of Under Armour? And, you kind of think, man, do kids really think about that? Some of them do, and there's never a blanket answer in recruiting where you can say, every kid just wants NIL, every kid just wants this. I mean, it does depend. People are different. Families and priorities are different. And so in recruiting, it's all about trying to, create as many advantages as you can. We have had, I think you would agree with this, Wes, we've had many people associated with the school and with recruiting and various programs agree with the notion that, kids want to wear Nike. Is it going to be, the final factor for kids? Is it going to be the primary? Do you even want to sign guys that are like, I'm coming to your school because you're a Nike school? Probably not. But if it helps you, if it's just one, piece of evidence of why you're a place that they might want to go, I think it's a positive. And for a long time, there's a large portion of Gamecock fans that have wanted to switch for similar reasons. They think Nike's cool. It's a big brand. It's kind of the biggest brand. And it can help you, I think, in recruiting. And we've heard that from some people.
Yeah, interesting hearing from Harbor there, who, of course, was highly considering Oregon, which is like the Nike mecca out of high school. And, guys, I think you're in, if you're South Carolina right now, you are in a slightly awkward spot that is unavoidable, in that you do have Under Armour for another year. They have been a great partner by all indications. Going to Under Armour, frankly, I believe was a great deal, a great situation for South Carolina when it happened. It's been, in my opinion, good for both parties. As with anything, what was good 10, 15 years ago is maybe not the best decision now. Lots of excitement around Nike. I would imagine, once we get closer next year to this thing actually happening, you will see the school double down even more on the excitement level of what this means. But behind the closed doors, behind the scenes, there's a lot of excitement with the coaching staffs at South Carolina, not just football, but across the athletic department, about what this means for their student athletes. And so, yeah, long time coming, I think, for Carolina. Gamecock fans have wanted Nike for a long time, but they're not alone. The coaches and I believe the student athletes, most of them have wanted this for a long time. And very, very well put there by Nick, saying, a lot of people want Nike more than other brands. So you say that really without throwing Under Armour under the bus,
You obviously weren't with us last Friday when we were discussing the wish list from Nike. Is there anything in particular you'd like to see them do to a team's uniform or anything like that?
Dude, I am so old now. I don't know, nor do I care about that stuff. I just hope they are intentional about the uniforms and it's not just a template with some garnet and black. I tell you this, I have been asking for years for South Carolina to do a special Palmetto State jersey where, you're incorporating the palmetto tree, incorporating, the crescent moon, all those things, and not necessarily being a University of South Carolina jersey, but more like, hey, this is the state university type jersey. So if Nike could maybe make that happen, I would enjoy that. That's just a personal thing, though.
Yeah, I think that looked pretty cool. We'll see. We'll see what happens. And again, the uniforms they rolled out last week, the announcement, are just kind of placeholders. They may have something radically different before next season gets kicked off. So we'll keep an eye on that and react to it when that does happen. All right, guys, one more show, and then we'll be off until game number 1. It's been a long countdown, been a long summer, but we're almost there.
It's here.
Study for Sharp tomorrow.
Study for Sharp and
You're gonna ask something crazy.
Number 1 that I'm not going to tell you right now.
Love it.
Just prepare accordingly.
Okay.
And we'll break down everything for South Carolina, Virginia Tech one more time coming up tomorrow as well. That'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Halftime show with myself coming up next here on the game.
With myself.